Helu Metzia's DAF Lamed Beis, sponsored the Refuah Shalema for Elisha ben Devora. We're discussing the Mishnah. The first law in the Mishnah concerns one who found an animal in a barn. The Mishnah states he does not have to return it. It is not lost. If he found the animal in a public domain, he must assume it is lost. Rava explains that it refers to a barn that is not an alien environment, that would cause the animal to leave, but also does not prevent the animal from leaving. The first interpretation of the Mishnah's law is, according to Rabbi Yitzchak, only a barn within the tchum of the nearest city. But if outside the tchum, then it must be considered lost even in a barn. If found in a public domain, it must be returned even within the tchum. The second version of the Gemara is, if found in a public domain outside the tchum, he must assume the animal is lost. If found within the tchum, even in a public domain, it need not be returned. However, if found in a barn, even outside the tchum, it does not have to be returned. The next law in the Mishnah concerns a Kohen who sees a lost object in a cemetery. The Mishnah states he is not obligated to contaminate himself to return the object. Even if his father instructs him to contaminate himself or enter a place where he may go to return the lost object, the father instructed him to feed or clothe him instead. In either case, he must not listen to his father. The Gemara proves this. Although the Tanakh uses the term kabed, honor, in reference to Hashem and one's father, which would appear to equate them, the verse that teaches to fear one's parents states, "Ve'eshap sosai tishmaru ani Hashem," which means, I am the ultimate authority. The next law of the Mishnah discusses the requirement of prika utina, unloading and loading a fellow Jew's animal. The Mishnah proves from the verse that azov ta'azov, that if the animal buckles under its load more than once, the requirement is to help even numerous times. However, since the verse states imo, his requirement is only if the owner works with him, unless the owner was old or sickly. The next law is a machlokas between the Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon as to whether loading is a mitzvah as well. The Gemara explains the Tanakama as meaning he must unload for free, whereas loading he can charge the owner. Rabbi Shimon requires both to be done for free. The Tanakama holds that it was unnecessary to mention the obligation to unload. It can be learned by way of a kal v'chomer, because if the animal is not unloaded, he suffers, and in addition, the owner suffers a loss. Therefore, the Torah mentioned unloading to indicate that its obligation is greater. It has to be done even for free. Since one verse states, rovetz tachas maso, lying under its burden, and the other verse states, noflim baderech, fallen on the road, the latter indicates fallen and separate. And therefore, there's no ambiguity that as to which pasuk is talking about pre-kantina. However, Rabbi Shimon holds both were mentioned, both pre-kantina were mentioned because the terms of the verse are ambiguous. Both can refer to fallen under its load, and therefore the Torah had to mention both. The next law of the Mishnah states that Rav Yossi Aglili holds that if the owner overloaded his animal, his fellow Jew is under no obligation to help him. Evidently, Rav Yossi Aglili holds that the concern for the animal's suffering, tsar balei chaim, is not a biblical obligation. Apparently, the Tanakama and Rav Shimon that do not differentiate between an animal overburdened hold that tsar balei chaim is doraisa. The Gemara suggests that this is not conclusive. They disagree with the interpretation, possibly, what the words tachas maso mean under its load. They hold even overburdened irrespective of tzar balei chayim, tachas maso means he must help him out even if the animal was overburdened. The second indication is when a brisa says the law is the same for a Gentile's animal, could be because it would encourage Gentiles to hate Jews, but not to alleviate the suffering of the animal. The arguments in favor of it being doraisa, tzar balei chayim being doraisa, one, we cannot prove from the law that if the owner refuses to help, then his friend is under no obligation, because it may mean only that he is under no obligation for free, but he must unload the animal for pay that he can demand from the owner in court because the Torah considers the animal's suffering. Secondly, if the owner of the animal requiring loading is his enemy, he must help him over his friend whose animal requires unloading in order to conquer his evil inclination to hate a fellow Jew. That overrides the biblical obligation not to cause suffering to an animal. The third indication is, although there is a brisa that qualifies the obligation of the porek based on the language of the pasuk that says rovetz tachas maso, which means lying incidentally, not habitually, lying not standing, its pack means one that it can bear, apparently not concerned with the animal's suffering. The Gemara explains this brisa according to Rabbi Yossi Aglili.